Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us on today's webinar training. It is 10 o'clock, so we're going to get started. I'm Aubrey Bowman. I am the marketing assistant here at ZAACT, and I just want, like I said, I want to welcome you to today's webinar training on Microsoft Office 365. Just a few housekeeping items to go over before we get started. Today's session is being recorded, and everyone has been placed on mute during the presentation. We will be taking questions during and after the presentation via the chat application, and primarily just the last 8 to 10 minutes of the presentation. A little introduction about ZAACT is we are a solution-focused consulting firm based in Sandy, Utah, helping clients enhance productivity and create better experiences from their technological investments. Our team of architects, developers, designers, analysts, and project managers are passionate Microsoft experts who bring both innovative approaches and best practice methodologies to all of our client partnerships. We are to help you get the most from your productivity tools like Office 365 and Teams. We can show you how to organize, share, and secure your documents and information with SharePoint and modern internet portals, build powerful dashboards in Power BI, as well as complementary technologies to assist you in simplifying and automating your business process needs and increase communication. We are excited to have you join us today to learn more about how utilizing Office 365's features and applications will allow you to collaborate more effectively in a remote environment. Now, let me introduce our presenter for today. Her name is Elissa Smith. Elissa has been a software applications facilitator for over 20 years. She also has been a technical writing consultant and an adjunct instructor at Davis Technology College and Weber State University. She has taught classes for Nike Corporation and local companies like Lifetime Products. She loves teaching and traveling and spending time with her dysfunctional dog and family. Once again, thank you for joining us, and I will now turn the presentation over to Elissa. Elissa, you're on mute.
Hi, guys. Yeah, I gotta love that mute button. My name's Elissa, and really appreciate, again, Aubrey for that great introduction. I'm actually going to go ahead and go right into our environment. Not going to do PowerPoint slides because I want to have as much time as possible, again, for us to spend inside Office 365. And, as we do this journey, the thing that I want us to focus on is within the last 3 months, we know that so many workplaces have been rocked by the COVID-19. And again, to anyone who's joining us, we so respect everybody for all you've been doing to ensure that your own workplaces are continuing to run, people have jobs, and also trying to keep everyone safe. And more than ever before, being able to work remotely has become key. And we see that with this global workplace that we live in now. And of course, Microsoft has a lot to offer with that, with these online applications. So today we just want to go back to the ability to work remotely in Office 365 and really speak to the tools within it that can help a worker work remotely all the time, but especially during these, of course, challenging times that we're all living in. So I know right now we're seeing a desktop, and just so you know, for my for my presentation today, I'm going to be playing a user by the name of Megan, and she works for a fictitious company called Contoso. But we want to really talk about from the very beginning for new users. And what happened with the pandemic is suddenly many organizations had these tools available, but they really hadn't been utilizing them to their utmost, to the utmost that they could be used. And now suddenly they were hit with, you don't even have time for people to get their feet wet. They just had to dive into the water and get all the way submerged, a lot of times without a lot of assistance. So we want to look at it from the perspective, again, new users to Office 365. And one of the things I always love to remind people about is that for a new user, when it comes to accessing this portal, sometimes they don't even know how to log into it. So let's just take it back to the very beginning. If I'm in a brand new web browser and I need to get to Office 365, I like to tell people you want to get to that portal, to the doorway, right? And so we always tell them, go to your intranet site if there's a link to Office 365 there, or when you have a secure login, go to your browser, type in office.com, and it's going to take you to your login like you see here. And then, of course, we remind them you want to sign in, and then we have them sign in with their work email, their password, and then it's going to take them to their portal page. And sometimes a lot of organizations require an additional sign-in for secure login. But I like to introduce this as a portal or a home page. Common question we get a lot of times with new users is they see redundancy here because they're going to say, wait a minute, I see Outlook. I've seen Outlook before. The OneDrive thingy, not quite sure what that's about, but we'll talk about that. We've also got Word, Excel, PowerPoint. Why am I seeing applications that I already have installed on my computer here within this web page? And I know it sounds silly, but sometimes users don't understand that when they go to Office 365, they're seeing the online versions of the applications. And we have to kind of help them understand the difference between the application that's installed on their computer being a desktop or native app, and then these online applications. And a good analogy I like to use when describing these is we call these the lighter applications, the ones that are made to run in a web browser. So they're great when you're in a hurry or you're working remotely, but they're not going to have the full functionality that we're used to with the desktop apps. Now, another thing sometimes people don't realize about this particular portal page is that if they look, it actually has a lot more information in it besides the links to the online apps. For example, if we come down in the middle, we're going to see recommended documents that people within the org are using. And then also, if I go down to the very, very bottom, we see links to the two most primary important cloud storage tools within an Office 365 account. We're going to see OneDrive on the left that we're going to talk about next in our tour today. And then, of course, SharePoint, which is really the workhorse of Office 365. It's probably the most important app because it does so many different things. But these two areas allow users to get to their file storage through their Office 365 account. And because it's at the bottom, sometimes they forget it's there. But back at the top, another thing sometimes users don't realize, again, if we're trying to give them the full vision, is that they see these apps on the top, like Outlook and OneDrive. There are more apps. And today we're going to try to, again, remind people that there's more there than just those basic Outlook, Excel, PowerPoint, online apps. So if I come here and go to all apps, we're going to see that in many organizations, we'll see that this would actually take us to a list of the full set of applications that are available through Office 365. Now, given in different organizations, they have choices as to which apps they're going to release to their employees. But there's some great ones here that everybody has, and sometimes they don't even know about it. So today during our tour, we're going to look at a couple of these that are just so easy to use and so powerful, like Microsoft Planner for the tracking of tasks, and even Power BI, which is just fantastic for creating business intelligence dashboards that are amazing. So sometimes too, we need to kind of widen people's horizons and say, beyond Outlook online, there's a lot more here. And all of this is accessible through a web browser. When you have a secure login, you can get to all of these tools. So when it comes to working remotely, Office 365 provides a lot of powerful tools. But let's take a minute and talk about the part of Office 365 that is just for that user. And the thing that's interesting, I also remind people, this is a web browser. So the back button is probably the best navigation tool that you have. And that is also sometimes a little bit silly and simple, but that's important when it comes to navigating in Office 365. The other thing to remember that we have to remind users about is when we navigate in Office 365, we have the app launcher in the top left-hand corner to help us get back to apps, as you can see here. And it looks like a Rubik's Cube, yes, so sometimes people will call it that, but the correct Microsoft term is application launch button. But we can use it to switch us to the applications we have open. And also, you can always come here to the top right, and there's a link that will take you back to Office 365. And I have it open in 2 tabs now. But again, those are some of the tools that you use to help you navigate in this web cloud-based application world. And some of our users aren't used to that. And they might say, well, wait a minute, where are all the windows? And I want to say to them, this is actually a more seamless way to navigate than closing and opening windows. But it is a little bit different. So let's go ahead. And what I want to do for just a minute is talk about, like I said, really the center of Office 365 for each user, and that is OneDrive for Business. So when it comes to managing their own content, OneDrive for Business is the center. It's the one part of Office 365 that is really customized for the user. And I think sometimes we undervalue the importance of having users feel comfortable in OneDrive. So how do I describe OneDrive to new users? I like to use the analogy of a filing cabinet if they're old enough. If they're younger, file management. But if we think of OneDrive for Business as a filing cabinet online where they can get to all of their own stuff, and sometimes also using the analogy of their home drive or their personal work drive where they currently store all of their work files, putting those online so they would be accessible to them when they have to work during a pandemic, or maybe they get sick and need to work from home. OneDrive for Business is going to allow them to get to their stuff. And of course, we've got the cloud. Now, another good analogy to use sometimes, and I'm going to click on it so it's going to open up, is to think of other products that are competing products like Google Drive and Dropbox, because sometimes users have used those before. But then, bring in the idea that with OneDrive for Business, they're going to see how it works with their desktop applications. And we're going to do that on our journey today. Also, OneDrive for Business works inside of Teams. So if you have any, again, organizations that are really driving home the Teams platform and using it as a main platform for collaboration, OneDrive plays a very important role in that as well. So when we see OneDrive open up, notice again, we're going back to things opening in their own browser tab. This is another important element to let new users know about. Applications open in browser tabs. So really, if you wanted to close OneDrive, all you would do is close the browser tab it's in. And notice again, I know I'm in OneDrive because it tells me below that. Also, I have that app launcher in the top left-hand corner to allow me to navigate to another area. Now, a quick little tour, if we get on the tour bus of OneDrive for Business, the navigation bar is here on the left. So My Files is the default view. This is where you'll come to when you open OneDrive for Business up in the web browser. Recent files, hopefully we don't have to go over what's there, right? Any recent files that the user's been to. And then we have shared. And this one is really important. We're going to spend a little bit of time here. Shared files are going to be files that a coworker has either shared with me or files that I have shared with them. Discover can be turned off. This is an e-discovery area inside of OneDrive. And remember, in my environment, everything's turned on because Microsoft wants us to see the full opportunity. And then recycle bin is very much like the trash can in Outlook. Files can be placed here. It is a two-stage recycle bin, so you get 2 strikes before you're out. But after it's been removed from the second recycle bin, it's very difficult to get back. And we kind of just like to tell users, if it's in the second stage recycle bin and then it's gone, you're probably not going to be able to get it back, right? Just to save IT a little bit of grief. Underneath, these can be SharePoint sites that can be linked into OneDrive. Again, another area that can be turned off. But we want to focus on My Files because this is where the user is going to see their stuff. Now notice how it's organized in columns by folder and name. So you can build folders inside of OneDrive, but the way you keep this content organized and work with it is through this ribbon at the top. And if you want to refer to it as a toolbar, that's fine, but the term is of course ribbon. Now, not to be overlooked, in the very top middle, there is an awesome search bar. And I just want to take a minute and highlight this at the very beginning because say I'm brand new to OneDrive, first time in here, my IT's dumped all the stuff from my main drive in here. How do I find anything, right? That might be a user's use case. They need to click up here, type in a word that might be anywhere inside of that file. And notice I just typed in a word that I know is in a title and it's already finding it for me. But I want to dive in a little bit more just so you can see how powerful the search here is. So let's go ahead and come down to show more results. And staying inside OneDrive, you'll see here it takes me in, it's showing me a list of all the different files that have come up from that one word, the word small, that I started my search with up here. How do I drill into these a little bit more though? So anytime you see a funnel in Office 365, you need to kind of start knowing that funnel stands for filtering. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that filter button. And you'll see that on the right, a filtering taskbar opens up. And right at the top, I can already start filtering by the date of the file. Okay, and these files are kind of old, so we'll keep them open a little bit. Also, file type. And you can see how it's already taking me to the one I want. And then also down at the bottom, the last person to open or modify the file or someone that's authored it. To close this pane, I'm going to go up here on the right and click on the little funnel button. and that turns off the filtering pane, and it would turn off my filter. So again, we can use this to really help narrow our way down. And of course, any file that we're seeing here in these search results is clickable. Now this is an Excel spreadsheet, so when I click on it, a third browser tab is going to open up. Another good example of how you navigate between applications, because here we're going to see I have one browser tab for Excel. This is Excel Online, so the browser-based version of Excel, the Excel web app, and then I've got OneDrive for Business open in my second one, and then still on my third one, I have the home page. So when users need to navigate between apps, they're literally clicking on a browser tab. Now, really, isn't that easier than navigating between windows in a Windows PC? It's funny how people don't think it is, but I do. So back in this spreadsheet, I could actually make updates to it at this point, but let's say I just needed to peek at it. So now I'm going to go ahead and close it. So next step is let's close that filtering pane for our search. We're going to come right here and click on the filter. That'll close it. To clear my search, I have different options. I can come up here and click in the search box and hit an X. That would clear my search. I could also hit my browser's back button. I can actually come here and click on my files again. Any of those would clear that search out. How do I get new content in here? I want to click right here on my upload button, come in and decide if I'm bringing in entire files or folders. I always warn users, when you do a folder, you could take a lot of time to upload, because upload is one of the slowest speeds we have with internet. So make sure that if you're doing that, you're not doing a lot of other time-intensive things on your device while you do. We just want to bring in some files in this case. And you know, the other reminder for new users is that when you bring something in, you would actually be, again, bringing that content in from your device. So I'm going to make this box a little bit bigger for people. You'll see that right here, if I go to my, again, to the different folders on my device, I have one called CIE Assets that I can click on, and another folder called Modern Workplace. And in here, I have a PowerPoint, and it looks like 3 Word docs that I'm going to use my Shift key to get selected. So you can, again, upload more than one thing at a time. Reminder again that speed can slow down. So what I'm doing right now is I am uploading those files. Okay. If there's any issues, it might tell me why would there be an issue. Maybe the file is open. Maybe it's been shared with someone on a network drive and they're in it, right? But we know that it will eventually get it copied in. So it's copying it in for me when I do it this way. Upload will copy. And now I can see those, again, files are getting added here into my OneDrive for Business. And it also kind of gives you updates if you look at the top right as it's doing those things. So you can upload that way. Here in a minute, we'll show you one more. But the other thing that sometimes people don't realize about OneDrive is because this is cloud storage, we can share files with coworkers through it. And I always like to take people through the analogy of what happens when we attach a file to email. I know you've all heard this story before, but let's just redo it again, right? So I have a file, a spreadsheet I need to share with my coworkers. I attach it to an Outlook message and send it to them. They each then download the file, make their changes and send it back. I have to fold them all into each other, and we may do this process over and over again. What about when we share it through a shared drive? Well, there are challenges there. People forget where it's at. People lock it out. Maybe they check it out of the SharePoint library and then no one checks it in and no one can get to it while they're on vacation for 2 weeks. You know what I mean? The challenges go on. And the downside to attaching files through email is just the file replication that happens. It's like multiplying bunnies, right? The story we all know. And so when we share a file through OneDrive for Business, we're actually giving our coworker direct access to that file. We're not creating multiple copies of it. And it's again, something that they can use at any time. And when I'm done sharing, I can take it back. So how do we share a file? Well, first of all, we need to know that if we click on a file, it's going to open. So what I want to do instead is either right click or come to the left-hand side and select a file. And we'll see that there's a blue circle with a white check mark that appears. Also notice up at the top, the ribbon changes because OneDrive recognizes I have one file selected. Additionally, another way to get to the same tools that are in this ribbon are to come down to the ellipses that I'll see between the name of the file and the date it was last modified. Notice that the ribbon is almost exactly the same. In both of these locations, there is a share button that I'm going to go ahead and click on. Now, the first step of share is to decide the type of link. And again, this is another area where the IT department can adjust this. I want my link to only be available to people inside my organization. Notice down here that this means that it is a link that will allow editing to the file. If I uncheck this, it would mean that they couldn't edit the file. We're going to allow them to edit, and I'm going to apply these. So I'm customizing the type of link that I'm going to provide to my coworker. Next step I need to do is to type in the name of my coworker. Now from the company address list or Active Directory, I can get any coworker in my organization. I can even add a message. And they are going to get an email in Outlook with a link to this file. But even if they don't click on the link, it's still going to be shared with them through their OneDrive. Now, the thing that will change when we do a shared file, and I know this is a little bit small, but if we come over to the right-hand column, the very far right, and I'm going to zoom in on this just a tiny bit to make it a little bit easier to see, you'll see that now when I look at that annual financial report, and I think it was already shared, but I have now shared it with Patty. When you share it the first time, it will go from being private to shared. So where can we go to find these files that have been shared with us? We actually already highlighted this at the beginning of our tour in OneDrive. Right over here, when we come to the third option down, we have shared. And when we click on shared, there's two ways to view this. Shared with me are going to show me files that a coworker has given me permission to share. So right here, I'm seeing anything that has been shared with me with someone inside my org. Important thing for users to understand. Shared with me, you don't own these files. Your coworker who shared it with you does. And look over here, I can see in the middle who the owner of these files are. These are my coworkers that have said, hey, you can have permission to either view or edit my file. Now the second tab at the top, shared by me, is different because these are the files I own that I have shared with a coworker. I've actually given them permission to share the file with me, and I can take back that sharing right at any time. Now, a great one to look at here is a spreadsheet, because I think a lot of us work with spreadsheets, and the challenges of trying to share spreadsheets with each other are ongoing, right? So I shared this file with my coworker, Patty, just a few minutes ago, and we both want to go into the file at the same time and make changes to it. So I can see it here that I've shared it with her, and I could open it here, or if I go back to my files view, because remember, I own the file, I shared it with her. When I go back to my files view, I'd see that the file will also be in this list as well. Now, when I click on it, it's going to open Excel Online and take me into the spreadsheet. And the idea here is that my coworker I've shared the file with can be in it with me, or we can be in it separately, but we can both be making changes to it. Now, another thing that's really different for new users is that when it comes to working in files simultaneously, do we have to save? So we kind of have to prepare them for the idea that when you're working with OneDrive, it's cloud storage, so they don't actually have to save the file at the same time. They can actually save the file separately. And I hope you're seeing that up in cell G1, I actually see a border and someone else's initials are in it. This represents my coworker. And when I hover, I see Patty is in the spreadsheet with me. So the other thing we're trying to show people here is what it looks like when you're co-authoring in a document. And notice that Patty can come in and she can click and work in the spreadsheet. Now we are in Excel Online, so there are some limitations to functionality, but really when it comes to co-authoring a spreadsheet, Excel Online makes it very easy to do simple edits. So for example, I've asked Patty to go ahead and change the very top of the spreadsheet. So what she's going to do is come in and click. She's going to update the color. She's also going to increase its font size. And you can see that as she makes those changes, I'm watching her do it. Now, in the meantime, say, for example, I want to come down and do a sort. I can do that. Notice it's asking me if I want everyone to see it or just mine. And you can see how we can still work in the spreadsheet. It's a little more limited, but these changes that we're making are all saving back to OneDrive for Business. Now, could you open this in the desktop app? Yes, and I am going to do that briefly, but again, this will depend on the setup of your organization. But if you do have, again, the right licensing and the right applications, you can take a co-authoring experience like this and take a file that's open in OneDrive, and right here you're going to see an option to open in desktop app, and that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to transition from being in OneDrive and then Excel Online to going ahead and opening it up in the desktop client. So you'll have to go through the little permissions, and Excel desktop wasn't open. So the native client is going to open up and take me into the same spreadsheet. We'll see it here in just a minute. And again, the reason we're doing this transition is it's a common question for users to have. Okay, if I'm doing work with OneDrive, am I still going to be able to use those desktop applications that I'm used to using? And could I do co-authoring? And with the correct licensing, absolutely. So now that I'm in here, again, we want to see, what does it look like? Does it look the same or does it look different when there are two of us in the spreadsheet working together? And again, the one thing I will say is when you transition to the desktop apps, sometimes it may seem a little bit slower. It's depending, again, on your bandwidth. And the thing we have to also say is that with working from home, due to the pandemic, some of our users may be experiencing a little bit of a lag, right? Because their internet speed at home can be challenging. But once everybody's back at work, hopefully it'll be a little bit better. But I know Patty's here because if I look in the top right-hand corner, I can see her initials. And if I click on it, it'll actually say go to location, or it will even tell me what cell she is in while we're doing this editing. And again, just to kind of show what it might look like, I'm going to go ahead and have Patty put in a couple of blank rows into the spreadsheet, just so we have a little bit more room at the top. Now, additionally, you'll notice that that moves things down a little bit. I could even come into the top right and say share the file from inside desktop Excel with an additional coworker. But for the sake of time, let's go ahead and head out of this party. Neither of us has saved anything. So I'm going to go ahead and just have Megan come up and close out of desktop Excel and go back to OneDrive. And we'll see Microsoft Excel is still open. Now, if Megan leaves, will it kick Patty out? Sometimes on shared drives that will happen, or it will lock the file down. It doesn't happen. Patty can continue to make more changes, but the important thing to remember is the next time either one of them goes into this shared spreadsheet, they would both be able to see each other's changes in it. They will always be in the most up-to-date version. Now, the other upside, and I'm going to close Excel Online in this case by clicking on the Browser tab, of sharing a file is when you need to make it not shared anymore. So that same spreadsheet that we were just working in, let's say that Patty's done helping me make edits. I'm now going to come down to the spreadsheet, click on it again to select it. And then again, I'm going to come here to the three dots this time and go to share. And you'll notice this would reopen the share box so that I could share it with someone else. The other thing I wanted to show you here is even give people a link to it. But in this case, what I want to do is be able to go in and look at the sharing properties for the file. So in the top right-hand corner, you'll notice that there is a details pane. It's a circle with a letter I in it. And there are different ways to get to this, but I'm going to click on this and it gives me lots of information about this file. Okay. And again, this is a little more detail where you see a picture of it. You'll see who it's been shared with. And also down towards the bottom, you even see a little history of activity in the file. Now in this list, you can see that there's an option to manage access that has to do with the sharing. One more way to get to it though, is to come right here to the word shared on the far right column of the document. When we click on this, it's actually going to take us into the manage access window. And from here, what I'm going to see is everyone the file is shared with as I look down in that list. And you'll see right here that we've got Patty. And then additionally up at the top, I could create a link that I could send to someone. But what I want to do is just stop sharing the file altogether. So no one will have access to it anymore. Could you ever do that when you email a file to people? I ask people that question. Sometimes I see them trying to figure out a way to make it work. I'm like, nope, it doesn't work. So we're going to say stop sharing. And you'll notice that really the only thing I see that's going to let me know that it's not shared anymore is I'm going to come back in and I'm going to refresh my browser. We need to refresh it because sometimes it gets stuck. But what I want you to see here is if I look now at that very same spreadsheet, we can see it here, that it now says private. So it was shared with 4 or 5 people there. Now it's not shared anymore. And that's the power of OneDrive. And unfortunately, sometimes users don't understand it. Now, I want to, for just a minute, open one of these files up in the desktop app. This is another question I get from people often. How do I go to OneDrive Online and still be able to work with my files in the desktop? So briefly, what I want to do is go to this annual financial report, and I'm going to click on the 3 dots in the middle. You could also right click. There are multiple ways to do this. And notice right here that there's an open option. There are some hacks for this, but really from inside the app, this lets me choose, do I open it in the desktop client or online in the browser? I'm going to go ahead and open an app, which means Microsoft Word is going to launch and allow me to take this file from the web browser, OneDrive, and actually open it in my desktop app. Important to understand because sometimes users get concerned that they're going to lose usage of their desktop applications when they're using the online ones. And I like to remind them, hey, you're not losing anything. You're getting, again, additional utility, especially for working remotely. So now that I have the spreadsheet opened here, I can make changes to it. Another common question we get, how do I know the changes are going to be saved? And again, a few things that you can do depending on your setup. Always remind your users about the autosave that's turned on up here and the recycle symbol next to their save shortcut in the quick access toolbar, reminding them that actually everything is saving as they go. Now, I know this file is being saved, and sometimes I actually take them in and show them after it's been saved, but I want to talk one more use case. I'm in Word, and I suddenly remember I need to create a new training agenda for a meeting. So I'm opening up a blank document. I'm going to go ahead and call this the training agenda for today is the 12th, we'll say for Monday. We're almost at the middle of June. And I'm starting to type my topics, and then I remember, oh, I'm trying really hard to start saving things to OneDrive so I know I can get to them when I need to be working remotely. So I'm going to go to File and Save As. This is such a simple thing, but we want to show users, look how this is. This is like magic. Just like I would normally save to a shared drive or to something locally on my device, I now can get to my OneDrive. I like to remind them that they would see OneDrive dash the name of their organization. I see Contoso because that's the name of Megan's company. We can see all of her different folders that are in her OneDrive. And right here, I can go ahead, type in the name of my file. I could even save it in a folder, but when I click on save, just as I normally would, I'm literally saving it to my cloud storage. And now it's saved in OneDrive. Now, if we close out of Word, we'll close out of both files. Notice we never really clicked on a save button in Excel except to get the document created. And then I go ahead and do an update to my browser. That's another thing we kind of have to let users know. Now, another thing I do like to do is make sure they know that they can also come to the headings at the top of the columns and actually sort their content so they can control, again, their view. But the important thing that we want users to see here is that that Word document is there. We did create it, and we saved it from the desktop app into OneDrive for Business. And finally, if we open it up, it's going to open up right in the online app in this case. I didn't add a lot of content yet, but now when I need to work remotely, can I still update this agenda? Absolutely. Now, final thing, and then we're going to take a tour of a few other cool apps. But again, like I said, I really feel like if users can embrace OneDrive for Business, being able to work remotely is so much more powerful. In many orgs, another thing that they allow users to do to simplify working with their OneDrive for Business is to synchronize their OneDrive with their device. And what this does is allows the users to get to their OneDrive files from their file management system, so from Windows Explorer or File Explorer. When we click on open here, I'm showing you the sync process. The thing to remind users about is that they only have to do this once, and once their files are synced, they don't have to do it again on that device. And again, it's my way of getting to my OneDrive files even when I don't have the web app open. So this is the process. It's very simple. It only takes a few moments, but it's important to point out here to users what these little symbols represent. The blue border is online only. This one means on this device, and this one means always available no matter what. And I always tell people only do the third option when you really, really need the file, because for most of us, we're going to have internet 90% of the time when we're working remotely. Now, when we click on Go to My OneDrive, you'll see down in the bottom right-hand corner that it's telling me that I'm now syncing. And a lot of times users will also see a little blue arrow down there. But my File Explorer is opened up. And the thing I'll point out to users is that you're going to see a new drive here. It's almost like you've plugged in a whole new huge hard drive to your computer, which is what you've done, but it's in the cloud. It's going to be OneDrive dash the name of your org. And when we click here, we will see all of our OneDrive for Business files in here. Now, what does this mean when it comes to working with files? If I've had content locally on my device that I want to add to my OneDrive, for example, here in this CIE Assets folder, I have a couple of PowerPoints. In this Modern Workplace folder that I'd like to get added to OneDrive, I'm going to go ahead and select them. And then just like I normally would, if I'm comfortable using, again, my File Explorer, I can drag and drop and just move them. So in this case, it's a move, not a copy. I'm literally taking it from my hard drive folder and putting it into my OneDrive. Now, how do I know they're there? Because when I click on my OneDrive, I can actually see these top 3 files, how they've been added. Is there more? Yes, but the big takeaway is to let users see you actually don't have to have your OneDrive, again, open in Office 365 in the web browser. Now you can get to your OneDrive documents and files right from inside your File Explorer, and it's super cool. Again, let's go ahead and head back to Office 365 because I think I've raved about OneDrive for Business enough. But I think it's a really powerful tool, and I see it underrated a lot of times by users because they just can't grasp the idea of it. But again, the benefit of it is that it works seamlessly with all of the Office 365 applications and the native Microsoft applications, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Teams in the web app, and in all of the other versions of Teams, and even OneNote work with OneDrive. Now back in Office 365, let's look at a couple of other really great little gems that are in here. And then, like I said, we'll try to save about the last 8 to 10 minutes for questions. So at this point, if you've had questions come up, I'd love to have you put them in the chat. Sorry, we forgot to mention that, but we'll also have people at the end be able to unmute, as Aubrey mentioned, and do some Q&A that way. Now, the app I'm looking for is a really simple one, but it is, like I said, a gem inside of Office 365. It's called Microsoft Planner. Now, do not confuse this one with Microsoft Project, which is its own amazing beast for project management. Planner is much more simple. It's all about managing tasks. If you have Office 365 within your organization, it's already part of your users' accounts. It's no additional cost. They already have this one. So let's go ahead and open Planner up. The other neat thing that we're not going to see in this particular session, but do know, is that Planner integrates seamlessly with Microsoft Teams to allow teams to see all of their, again, all their information in one place. But the thing I'll tell you about Planner and Teams is that what you're going to see in the Planner app is exactly what users would see in Teams. So they can really go seamlessly into Teams and have the same experience. So here we have Planner open up. It takes you through this cute little getting ready thing, and it even gives you the ability to create a plan. But back behind, it has a similar setup to a lot of the Office 365 applications, where you're going to see a navigation pane on the left, the app launcher still in the top corner to remind us that we're in Office 365. Now you'll see here that there is an opportunity to create a new plan, which we'll do here in just a couple moments. But I got to show you this thing called My Tasks. Now, Planner Hub, what is this? Planner Hub is a place where you can actually see recent plans that you've been in and then all the plans that you're participating in. And you'll see here that when we go to all plans, it's going to show me other plans that I'm part of. And most of these plans, just so you know, are part of Microsoft Teams. Now I can favorite plans that I'm working with a lot, and notice it actually puts them up at the top and shows me a little progress report on how the tasks are doing. We can see that there. But another great view is called My Tasks. So if I'm part of all these different plans, how do I keep track of what I need to do? Again, we're looking at it from the perspective of my stuff. There's this fantastic view called My Task that will show the users just their stuff, separate from everything else. And notice right here, it's showing me the name of the team, and then underneath it's showing me the tasks. And if I click on it, it will take me into the detail of that task. And I could come in and say, well, I happen to know that I've started working on this task, and I'm going to add a checklist item so they know it's done, and I'm even going to check it off. And then I'm going to add other items. So I can update tasks in my own, again, task view that are going to all the other plans that I'm part of. So that's the My Task view. Now back here in the Planner Hub, I happen to have, again, a plan that I've been part of that I want you to see what a developed plan looks like. I'm going to click on it. This is the Marquee Project Plan. First of all, the view that we're in right now is the board view, and sometimes I tease about that, but it's very common to have people compare this to a Kanban board. People use this for Scrum, but the thing to remember about Planner is it's very simple. It's task-oriented. So we're going to see right here that I can see the individual tasks in what are called buckets. You can create new buckets over here on the right. And all you do to create a task in a bucket is click right here on the Add Task bucket. And then you have to come in, set a due date, and then assign the person within the org who's going to do that task. And you can assign multiple people. Notice the little button on the right or the left. Sorry, guys, I'm directionally challenged this morning. And then you'll notice that it adds that task in. That's all that's required. So as far as difficulty, Planner is very, very simple. That's why it's not like Microsoft Project at all, because if you're familiar with Project's quite a complicated application in its many layers. Planner is not. Now, the other thing to notice about these planner tasks is that I could click on any task. It'll open up right inside of, again, an additional size task information box where I can do things like adjust the progress of the task, set a priority, and also do things like bring in an attachment that would support it. And just remind everybody, if you can stay muted until we're done, that would be fantastic. We're getting a little bit of echo. So if you can just put yourself on mute. Now, the other thing that you have here is the ability to create custom labels. Like, for example, I can come in, there are 6 different colors of label that you can create, and you can then assign these. And again, the nice thing about the labels, they're a lot like categories in Outlook. You don't have to use the ones that Microsoft has given you. You can use these on your own. Now, when you apply labels to a task, they'll actually appear on the task itself. And any task can have different labels that, again, are applied to it. You just come in and check them off. And you don't have to name them, but here's the benefit of the labels. After the labels are applied, you can use them for sorting and filtering by. So how do I sort this plan? Top right-hand corner, you'll see the default is to have it grouped by bucket. But I can also come in, for example, and have it be sorted in buckets by the labels that are applied. So here you see all my tasks with no label, my tasks with the training label, the IT label, or just the yellow colored label. Another option, and I have a lot of managers tell me they like this one, is to have the buckets be sorted based on who they're assigned to. So now I'm seeing the individual, again, member of the plan and their different tasks that they have assigned to them. And again, these can get really wide. So if you scroll over, you'll see again the ability to do that. Now, filtering is also very powerful. In the left, I should say in the top right, next to the sorting, you have the ability to filter. And I really like this because I could filter just by those little colored labels that I selected by coming in and picking one specific one. And I can do more than one category. And now I'm just seeing the tasks that have either the training label or the IT label applied. So again, very, very simple. And every member of the plan has the ability to get to it from Office 365. Last thing to share is that there are 3 views. We've been looking at the board view. Hopefully you aren't that way yet. There's a charts view. This is my favorite. If you're a fan of dashboards, I love this view because notice that I can see the progress of the entire plan based on its status, its bucket, its priority, and then down on the bottom, the individual members. And a lot of managers, again, tell me they love this view because they can quickly see the entire project or plan and update it using this dashboard. And every single plan has this. If you're someone that needs to see it on a calendar, there's also a schedule view that will let you see what tasks are happening on what days, and you can break it down by week and month. But as far as ease and accessibility, Planner's all about getting people in, letting them visually see things and get work done quickly. There's no Gantt charts. There's no resource costs. It's all very simple. When it comes to the details of the plan, you'll see 3 dots here at the top. This allows you to see who the members in the plan are. And the thing I wanted you to see here is there are plan settings. When you go in here, a couple things that you can do is edit the name of the plan and either make it public or private. Private means that only members that are part of the plan group already can see it. And then the additional feature to see in here as well is that you can set it up so that when a task is assigned or completed, they will get an email notification. And that is a question I get a lot of times is how does Planner integrate with Outlook? It's very limited, and do know that there are a lot of things on Microsoft's roadmap right now to integrate Planner with Outlook tasks and actually make them one and the same. eventually, but for right now, they're actually separate, but you will get email notifications if you turn them on when tasks are assigned or when they're done. Now, let's go ahead and say we're done with Planner. I'm just going to click on the tab and close it. The last thing I just want to mention, and it's like opening a can of worms, but it's so awesome, is Power BI Online. Now, do know that licensing with Power BI, you do have a basic licensing with your Office 365 account, but for the ability to share the information with coworkers, it does require sometimes additional licensing. But even the individual user can come into Power BI Online and create their own dashboards. But I want to just show you a couple of just brief examples. Take Microsoft Excel and put it on steroids, and please don't be offended by that analogy, as far as its ability to create charts and graphs. Because if any of you have been in Excel, you know that Excel builds really simple charts very well. But when it comes to creating views where you have multiple charts to create a dashboard, Excel does not do that well. But Power BI does. And the thing that you get with Power BI Online is then the ability to put those dashboards online and share them with people. Now, when we come into Power BI Online, again, we still have the Office 365 interface where we've got the app launcher in the top left, Power BI here, and then underneath we have a navigation pane. Now, the individual user within Power BI has kind of their own little hard drive area, which is called a workspace. So using the analogy of a hard drive or kind of their own folder within Power BI kind of sometimes helps the user understand it. And when they go to their workspace, they would be seeing their own Power BI information inside of this online data intelligence tool. And you'll see that, of course, dashboards, I like to describe dashboards as, say, a big canvas of charts where people can see multiple pieces of information all about one data set. And you'll see here that we've got two different ones that Megan's brought in. Notice that also she can actually get to the data sets as well from Power BI and even Excel workbooks that she may have brought in. But for the dashboards, let's say that she's added some of this information and now she wants to take a peek at one of her dashboards from anywhere, right? Remember, this is online. She can click on this dashboard and notice it takes her in. And the neat thing about these dashboards is how, again, interactive they are. Notice the user can hover over anything and pop-ups will appear. Also, you'll see that when they come in, if they click on a specific data point, it will drill into it sometimes and take them into information specific to that particular piece of information. Now I've gone into a report specifically about new hires that I just clicked on. And again, because we're in a web browser, we have the back button that will allow us to go out of that. Additionally, I can come to any of these pieces of this dashboard, come to the top right-hand corner, we'll see more options. Notice that these give me different opportunities to, again, come in and use just this particular piece of the dashboard. A fun thing you can do is called pin tile, and what this allows the user to do is take this particular piece of the dashboard and actually create their own dashboard from it. So I could create a new dashboard, call it mine. That's kind of mean, isn't it? But how about my stuff, right? And pin it. And so she could take pieces of multiple dashboards that she's part of and actually pin those to her own dashboard. Another thing also at the top left, and this is because Megan has the Power BI Pro online licensing, so it's not Pro, but it's Power BI Pro. I'm pretty sure that's the name of it. Sorry, guys. And it's the additional licensing. She has the ability to use native language to actually ask questions of her data set. So let me go back to it really quick. So all I'm going to do here is just start typing a question. And you'll see right here, it gives me even suggestions. So let's take their first one. Let's say, what is the sum of bad hires by region? And notice it's already showed it to me. And again, this is something that Power BI Pro just built for me. And I'd like to have this one for me in my dashboard that I just created. So I'm going to pin it. I'm going to come right here, click, and select that, again, new visual that I just selected. So these are not visuals that I've built. What Power BI Pro is doing is it's running, again, an engine, and it's helping me to ask questions of the data and actually build my own, my own dashboard from it. Pretty cool, right? It's very, very powerful. Now back here in my workspace, again, I'm coming over here to the left to get to that new dashboard that I'm building. You'll notice right here that I have my stuff. And when I click on my stuff, it's going to take me to the new dashboard where I took pieces from the other dashboard. That would be this one on the left. And then, and again, it takes me into the back side of it if I click on it. I also created this one right here on the right by asking questions of the data. And again, this is an additional tool that you have to have the higher licensing for, but Power BI is very powerful. Now, another neat thing is Power BI comes in a mobile app. If I come over here to the far right, let's say I'm building this dashboard and then I'm going to share it with a group that I work with, and I want to see if they open it in the mobile app, what it will look like. So I'm actually going to come right here, click on this web view button, and I can preview it if it were to be on a smartphone. And again, both Android and Apple work with this. So it just shows me an idea of what the dashboard would look like if my users, again, were to view it on their device. There is so much more we can look at with Power BI, but one last area that I want to kind of add. So far, we've had Megan just looking at her own stuff within Power BI also, and this can be linked also into Microsoft Teams. You have what are called Workspaces, where groups within Office 365 or Teams, if you want to use that analogy, can have their own space allocated in Power BI online to get to their stuff. So right here we have the Market Project team. This is actually a team inside of Microsoft Teams, and they also have some group data that they've brought in, and they have built some group dashboards. And notice right here that all they would have to do from this online version of Power BI to get to their group information is come here. Again, we see the different types of information that can be brought in. This is just an example of another Power BI report, the Operation Analytics. Sorry, I went to the wrong one. Apologies. Again, using this idea that Power BI is not just for the individual user, it's also for teams and groups. And we can see here another example of a dashboard that's been brought in. Now, a lot of these dashboards, you can build them in Power BI online, but they can also be built in the desktop version of Power BI, which is free, by the way. And then the user can actually publish them to their online. And if they publish them to their workspace area, they can then share the, again, Power BI reports that they're creating in Power BI desktop with the online version. And if they add them to a workspace, they can then be shared with their team. Again, for being able to share, there has to be additional licensing, but it's a pretty cool utility. And remember, this is all online. So let's say my data refreshes once a day. My team could come in and see this information in Power BI online while they're working remotely, and it would give them an update on this information. And again, these particular reports are set up so that they are, a lot of times you can actually filter them using the little filtering buckets on the left. So I just filtered for Europe. To clear it out, I can come and click on the little eraser and the whole dashboard opens, or I should say refreshes. So not everyone in the group may be creating these dashboards. You may have one analyst that does that, but everyone who's a member of this team or who is a member of this group can come in and participate in being able to interact with the data and glean information from it, including the ability, just one more, to take a piece of this report and do what's called focus mode, where you just see that particular part. And again, the same idea where I see a thumbtack in the top right. Remember that dashboard I was building previously? I can click on this, come in and still have my, again, I could add this to another group dashboard. Okay, in this case, because it's part of my workspace, I could build another new dashboard just for them, and we create our separate dashboard for the workspace group. So is Power BI, is there a lot of detail behind it? Yes, there's so much that you can do with it. But what we're seeing here again, as we get ready to wrap up, because I want to have a few minutes for questions, is that all from inside Office 365, I have this huge, powerful set of tools that can help me work remotely. And again, what we looked at today is we looked at the ability to manage tasks inside of Planner. And really, Planner is something that I think most people can really take and understand in just a little while. Power BI is a little bit different, but again, this introduction that within a web browser, we have the capacity to do some very advanced business intelligence and then share it with the masses in the org. Not everyone has to build those reports, but if everyone can understand them, it could really bring a lot of powerful information to our fingertips. And then really, in my opinion, the most important area in Office 365 when it comes to the individual user, which is OneDrive, because OneDrive lets me get to my stuff. It's my filing cabinet in Office 365. This is the one place in OneDrive where I have control over the information. As long as I follow my, of course, company's regulations on working with files in the cloud, this is your business stuff. And so I hope that what we're seeing with Office 365 is, yeah, it's Office 365. It's not new, but if we appreciate and understand what's here, you're really giving your users a huge toolkit that when it comes to working remotely, this is going to allow them to make it during these challenging times and allow businesses to make it, because we've got to be able to have these tools in place. I don't know when the next COVID-19 is going to come. I don't know when it's going to end, but I do know that working remotely is very much part of the here and now, and it's not going away. So let's go ahead and slow down. I'm going to turn off the screen share for just a minute so we can just see what questions people have had. We might turn it back on, but really, again, appreciate ZAACT Consulting and Aubrey for helping to support us. And let's see if anyone's posted any questions yet to the chat.
There have not been any questions posted yet.
Was that amazing, huh, everybody?
And I would say all the questions.
So everybody, do remember that we are recording these and they will be shared through ZAACT's site. And then I'm pretty sure in July we will be hosting some more events again. So please stay tuned for more information about that. We have sessions from April and May about Microsoft Teams. And also there were some other ones, weren't there, Aubrey, that you guys also did as well that are also available on the site?
We only have the ones that you have from Teams, and then there are a couple from a couple years ago.
Awesome. So we'd love to have you guys watch those as well. But thanks to everybody for joining us. Feel free to post questions to the chat at this point. I'd love to go back over anything that you have questions about. We still have about 5 minutes. Love to hang out with people. And I think at this point, people could probably unmute themselves to ask questions. If you can go in and click on your little microphone at the bottom of your Teams meeting room, feel free to do that. But a huge thank you to everybody for joining us on a Friday, and to ZAACT Consulting for helping to host these events.
Yeah, and thank you, Elissa, for joining us. Your information is amazing, and we've loved this partnership. It's been great.
I'm sure they love my sense of humor, right? Excel on steroids. What can we say? Again, guys, feel free to let us know if you have any questions, but thanks again for joining us, and feel free to reach out to myself or to Aubrey if you have questions after the event. It's always fun to hear from people, and we really hope that everyone keep going, right? We're going to make it through these challenging times, and I think we're going to come out stronger. So thanks again for joining. Let us know if you've got questions.